Welcome. I'm Harmony Slater, your host of the Finding Harmony podcast. Over the past 20 years, I've taught thousands of yoga teachers and students to explore the intersection between ancient wisdom and modern everyday life, using mind-body practices to heal, awaken, and manifest their dreams from the inside out. This podcast is a sanctuary for those feeling overwhelmed by life's challenges. Are you ready to jump in and discover how these challenges aren't actually in the way, but are the way to finding harmony? Let's invite the magic back in. There's been a lot of criticism and talk and challenges coming out in social media and in different communities around the Ashtanga yoga practice, especially these days with many of the revelations that have come out against some prominent teachers in the community. And today, we are sitting down with Zoe Ward, who is a longtime Ashtanga yoga practitioner. She's a lovely writer and one of the clearest voices in challenging the assumptions and the blind spots buried deep in our traditional Ashtanga yoga world. Zoe spent many years immersed in Mysore, in the Shala life, studying with lineage teachers in Miami as well, assisting and really fully taking on the dogma, the rules, the traditions, the teachings of this lineage-based practice, really embodying this discipline that is revered as sacrosanct in our communities. And yet, at some point in her journey, she had to learn to hold space for her own truth, for her own discrimination, and with her own razor-sharp brand of honesty, slightly irreverent, and yes, a very wicked sense of humor, she showed up on social media as the unruly ascetic and began naming what was often left unspoken. Things like the privilege one must have in order to take 2, 3, 6 months off and go to India and live in Mysore. The privilege to come back to a family home and not have to pay rent and get back on your feet. The power dynamics that were abusive and oftentimes continue to be abusive in different Ashtanga yoga communities around the world. Even in the power dynamics that a teacher can tell you who you are, what's good for you, what isn't good for you, and takes away your sense of autonomy. And the ways that devotion can often be manipulated and mutate into dogma, and we stop listening to our bodies, to our intuition. We start berating ourselves, shaming ourselves, and feeling more disconnected from the truth of who we are instead of integrated and connected. And so this is a conversation that I think really needs to be had. It's fun because Zoe is very fun, and we are talking about what it means to love a practice and to still have the courage to dismantle it from within to some respects, because the other option is to abandon the thing that you love completely. And there's a lot of good in the Ashtanga yoga system and in the Ashtanga yoga practice, but there's a lot of unlearning that needs to happen in order to find freedom. So what does it look like to unlearn rigidity and superstition and dogma and reclaim your own practice for yourself as a living, evolving path of consciousness, consent, and to really feel embodied in your integrity with yourself, with your body, with your mind, with your heart, with your spirit. So whether you are a lifelong Ashtanga yoga practitioner, student, teacher, whether you've quit the practice, whether you're a quiet quitter, or you are really struggling to get on your mat day in and day out, or even just any day at all. Maybe you're a curious skeptic or an angry, excommunicated practitioner, or anything in between any of these points of view. I hope that this conversation will help reflect and maybe shift how you understand discipline and tradition, and what true spiritual maturity can look and feel like for you. Hi, welcome to the Finding Harmony podcast. I'm here with Russell.
Good morning, everyone.
He likes it when I start that way. And we are joined by Zoe Ward. Hello, Zoe. How are you?
I'm good. It's nice to be here.
Yeah, it's been so long since I've seen you. I don't know. It was like maybe 2015 in Mysore.
Zoe, I'm not sure, have we ever been in the same room together?
You know what? I would have said I don't think so, except that I know that we have, because Kira Bauer was on the podcast and told the story about you joking to Sharat that you were going to go get a long sleeve shirt to do our balances.
Right.
And I was present as part of that story. And I actually, I remember that. Yeah. So that we definitely overlapped one season, although I don't think we ever spoke.
So I was assisting him in the morning, and then I had to start my practice at 10:30. And around that time, that was you and Kyra, your crew.
Yeah.
Yeah. He had suggested I do another posture and then demonstrated it. Yeah. And I said, well, he's using a shirt.
Yeah.
I should.
And you got up and started to walk off your mat.
I went and got a shirt.
Yeah.
And then he said, no shirt. And I was like,
yeah.
And I threw the shirt and everyone laughed. It was really cool because he and I could both be in our kind of natural personality.
Yeah.
Just being jokesters and comfortable and not having to put on a facade of seriousness that you also at some points become.
Yeah.
Like you're bossing people around and you really take on that personality.
The first time I assisted him was late in the morning, and he told me to come and assist, and he had me come like first thing in the morning. And then there were like 5 assistants, and I was like, I don't really need to be here. And he called me over during practice and said, I want you to come at 10 or whenever the late session was. And I said, okay. And I'm very resting bitch face, right? If I'm like doing my work and doing what I'm told, I look incredibly unpleasant. And I said, okay. And then I'd like step back. I was like, do you want me to leave now? And he was like, no, stay today. Tomorrow you come back. And I said, okay. And I step back. And he looks at me and looks out and then looks back at me and calls me back over. I come over and he's like, the late session is a better time. People need more help. It's better for practice. And I was like, oh, no, that's fine. I'm perfectly happy with that. I think he thought I was like, oh, man, I'm getting kicked off the mornings that, But he was absolutely right. It was a great time of day, not least because he seemed to relax as the day went on. And of course, I don't know what his experience was, but later in the day, I noticed that he seemed a little more likely to make jokes, kind of a little more likely to like let things slide. And the morning group is very serious and doing their work. And that late time of day was a cool time to observe him as a teacher and what he did with the room.
I couldn't agree more that it wasn't him. It was the energy of the 4:30 class. When I assisted the 4:30 and just tried to touch people, the vibration, it was like static electricity, prickly, staticky. everyone's tight and everyone's like really trying to push their career in this moment. Where at 11, 10:30, people are like really here for the experience of life.
Yeah, it's an early trip for them. For a lot of them, they're just thrilled to be there. And there was more of the yoga vacation energy. Like the people who were the last group of the day, either it was the first month of their trip and they're still like in the vacation vibe, or it was the only trip they were ever going to make. And they never got really serious about it. Yeah, and I don't mean that disparagingly. I mean that in a very healthy way. They never took the experience of making shapes on a filthy rug in a room in South India like so seriously that their entire sense of purpose and existence depended on whether or not somebody approved of the shapes they made. Like they were just happy to be there.
Yeah, I assisted in both in the morning, that early morning shift one year, and then also, I think it was the year before, I had done the later morning. And definitely, you're right. I think his whole attitude also was much more relaxed later in the morning. He was having more fun. I was always just so amazed at how he really took time with the new students to make sure they were learning correctly. And he was quite patient and
gentle, gentle.
Except for a few people. He's like, "Who's your teacher?" But it was always interesting what a different vibe the class was.
He really responded to us, I think. And like Russell said, I think we, as the student population at 4 a.m, we brought that energy. And so he reflected that energy back on us because that's what we were asking for. That's what we were expecting. And that changed as the day progressed. And I think for better or for worse, I appreciate that he respected how seriously we all took it. And he didn't tell us to lighten up too much. But the flip side of the coin in the community now, in the teaching community, I think so often people are coming to Ashtanga yoga, they're coming to the series and their mat wanting to be punished, wanting discipline, wanting to be held to a standard that they can't meet because they think they deserve it or because they think that it will transform them in some necessary or admirable way. And, the teacher is meeting the student on that desire where, maybe as the teacher, we should be encouraging them to explore that desire rather than chasing it.
Can I just unpack what we're seeing for a moment? We've established that we've been in the same room together, but there's wonderful stuff to kind of read here, and I'm trying to I'm looking at Zoe DiPiero, but it was Zoe Ward is who we introduced.
DiPiero is my married name.
And I figured that, and je suis sick of this shit, is this sweater you're wearing? Covering arm sleeves. And there's a kind of palpable kind of energy in your body that has a kind of a need to move. And you have this lovely curly hair, and I'm trying to just figure out are you a member of the tribe? Is that the vibe I'm getting?
Which tribe?
My family's Irish.
Irish. Okay. Yeah. So have you got like an East Coast kind of origin story?
Yeah, I'm from Charlottesville.
You're from Charlottesville.
You are looking at the dining room wall of the house I grew up in. So my family, my husband and my children live in the house that I grew up in. So yeah, I am downtown Charlottesville through and through. I've pretty much always been on the East Coast, obviously, other than when I was practicing in Mysore and assisting and teaching internationally. Like I've always lived on the East Coast.
I always thought that you spent quite a bit of time with Kino and Tim.
No, that's correct. For basically the span of time when I was going to Mysore, I was assisting them in programs. It started with Purple Valley and the place in Thailand in maybe Koh Samui. I don't remember what it was called, but we went there a few times.
Samahita?
There it is. And then I ended up assisting them a few times in programs in Miami, and I subbed for some Miami Life Center teachers while they were in Mysore. So yeah, they were I always referred to them as my Western teachers or my yoga mom and dad for a long time. Yeah.
What did your folks do down there in Charlottesville?
My dad was an architect and my mom is an engineer. I'm not at all a disappointment to them.
They're like, what did we do wrong?
Yeah. They both got their degrees at UVA. They both went to UVA undergraduate. And my dad has a master's. My mom has a PhD. They got through UVA.
Okay. And are they still with us?
They are. Yeah.
And are they upstairs?
No. My dad lives on a family property outside of town where he built himself a house throughout most of my childhood. So he moved there when I was in high school, and he kept this house as a rental. My sister and I lived here in college, and then it stayed as a rental. And he very generously allowed the house to be a bit of a flop house for me and all my friends over the years. So in our 20s, I had so many friends who were like a friend who went through a really rough, unexpected divorce and needed somewhere to live, and a friend who had to move back to town to support his mom while her health was fading, but didn't really have room to stay at home, that sort of thing. And I have 2 half brothers as well who lived in the house for a long time. And that was a huge privilege that allowed my trips to Mysore, because I had somewhere that I could come home for a month, 2 months at a time. Wow. And I wouldn't have to live with my parents. I wouldn't really have to spend any money. I could just be here and show up.
Were they older?
My parents?
No, your half brothers.
They're younger. I have an older sister and 2 younger half brothers.
And so your parents separated?
My parents divorced when I was young, and my mom remarried. Yeah.
Okay. How old were you when that happened?
I think 4. I don't particularly remember it. I always think of my parents as separate.
Yeah. Okay. Sure. Yeah. When I meet someone who does Ashtanga yoga with arm sleeves, like, of course, we immediately think,
but I didn't have sleeves when I was going to Mysore.
You got the gear.
My
These
sleeves
are new.
I also have a full chest piece. And
we don't need to see that.
And you wish you could, though, because it's sick. It's sick. I started getting tattooed while I was going to Mysore, and a lot of my tattoos are post Mysore, because I was getting this one. I started getting, I think, in 2014, and the artist who did it offered me a part-time job and said, hey, when you're in town, if you want to just check people in and tell people how to take care of their tattoos and just hang out, basically. It was very comfortable to me because it was similar to yoga. He said, I'm basically not going to pay you, but I'll tattoo you for free. And I was like, hey, that sounds great.
Wow.
A bad exchange, actually?
No, it really wasn't. And then I became very good friends with 2 of the artists in the shop. And one of my sleeves is by her, and my leg sleeve is by the guy. Yeah. So all of that came later, like a little bit intertwined, but a little bit later.
You've got 2 professional parents who graduated at UVA, and not to diminish Ashtanga yoga as a profession, but it's not quite a professional degree in the same way. And at a certain point, you went a different direction than perhaps maybe you even intimated that maybe your parents were a little disappointed that you didn't go in that direction. So how did that happen?
So I went to UVA, followed in my family's footsteps, and went to UVA. And I had the experience that, from talking to people, I think it's pretty common, particularly for girl children in the 80s. I had the experience of being conditioned to schooling at the time. So I never struggled with school. And I played sports and I was in clubs, and I kind of checked all the boxes of a good kid, and therefore never got any advice on how to do anything at all. The assumption was that I could figure it out.
Wow.
And as it turns out, I figured out some very different things than they expected. So I started at UVA and took a class my first semester with a professor of Indian history who is the coolest person to this day. He's like the coolest person I've ever met. He's Indiana Jones in real life. And he would tell these incredible stories. And somebody would say, oh, hey, Rich. He let us call him Rich because he was so cool. Say, hey, Rich, I can't find, the place you mentioned on the map. And he was like, oh, it's like half a day's motorcycle ride southwest of Delhi. Like, just the coolest person in the world, right? And I became like the girl in the front row with "I love you" written on my eyelids,
Exactly. Just
and
like Indiana Jones.
Took every class he taught. and became a history major just kind of by default because you ended up with enough credits and they're like, here's your degree. And when I graduated, I was like, I'm going to India. Yes, I'm doing it. This is like the last place in the world that there's room for adventure.
Exactly.
I was 22, started looking into like, what am I going to go to India for? And I had started taking yoga classes in college because there was a studio near my house where the owner would let me pay however much money I had, which was really nice of her. And I didn't understand like anything she said. The classic Ashtanga story, like, oh, I was terrible at it. And like, that's not true. I could touch my toes and I could do a back bend, I was very, very middle of the road at it. And so I thought, maybe, I have a history and religious studies degree. If I don't want to be a teacher and I'm not ready to go to grad school, what do I do? And I thought, maybe I can be a yoga teacher. Maybe that's something I can just do. And that can be like a side hustle while I figure my life out. I Googled yoga teacher trainings, India, and found an integral yoga teacher training program that was run at the Coimbatore ashram in South India. And there was attached to it a tour of South India. And it was like, great, like all inclusive, like I could go, they'll drag me around and show me the places I need to see. And then I'll do this teacher training program and I will come home like a transformed person. So I sign up for all of that and go to India and get to the ashram. And I'm told that a couple of days before the tour starts, some people are doing just like a quick little bus trip across to another state to go check out just this cool spot over there. And do I want to come? So I say, sure, I'm into it. Let's go. Hop on the bus, go, 5 or 6 hours across the country. And the next morning, I'm woken up at 3 a.m. and I'm told, like, okay, it's time to go. And I'm like, oh, go to what? It's the middle of the night.
Yeah.
They're like, we got to go. There's this yoga place. It's really, you don't get it now, but it's significant in terms of the greater scope of yoga. And this program, you have to understand, is run by renunciates. It's run by swamis. So they're integral yoga swamis. They're not just folks. Like they're legit in their own organization.
And that's like Shivananda lineage, right?
It is. Yeah. Satchidananda was Shivananda's student. Yeah. I'm like, okay. And they're like, this place is a big deal. Just come and check it out. And I'm like, okay, sounds great. And I go and it's the middle of the night and we get out of this van and they march us up these steps and they say, just sit on this little bench right here and just sit still and just watch. And I'm like, okay. And then somebody starts talking and saying words I don't understand. And there are like 60 or 80 people all crammed into this space. And they're all doing exactly the same thing, but somehow they know what to do, despite the fact that nobody's saying anything in English. And there's this skinny little Indian man running around and like correcting people and poking them. There's this old man sitting on a stage. And so unbeknownst to me, like 35 seconds into my yoga journey as an adult, I have been dragged into the KPJ AYI at 4 a.m, plopped down on the bench and told to just watch a lead primary.
Whoa.
That's crazy.
It's crazy. Can you imagine? They never would have let someone, and I'm assuming it's just because they were asked by senior members of another organization if they could, that there's that kind of professional courtesy that we are allowed to be there. So yeah, I definitely remember thinking that were they just doing the same thing over and over again? Probably the Jani Shashasanas at that point. Yeah. And then at one point, there was a guy in the foyer right in front of me, and he was just like, went into child's pose and stayed in child's pose. I now know that he was probably stopped. Like that was probably his last pose. But I remember looking at him and thinking, like, yeah, dude, I don't blame you. This is insane.
Rough. Yeah.
And then there is this woman who no one has ever known who she is. So I'm putting it out there to the internet. She had dark hair and she had a tattoo that was like a Pacific Northwest, like tribal tattoo like of a bird. And I remember watching her jump through and go into Setu Bandhasana. And I was like, that's the coolest human being I have ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
What is going on? This place is insane. And you would think that I would tell you that was the start of my Ashtanga journey. It was not. I didn't do Ashtanga for many years. That's just a very weird coincidence.
What year was that? That's so strange.
That would have been early 2006. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
We could have been in the room, honestly.
Yeah.
You might have been.
Yeah.
You might have been. I don't know what day of the week it was. Thank God they didn't
Friday.
show
It would
us
have been a
intermediate.
Friday.
Yeah,
I
it
would
was
have
led
led primary.
Yeah, I would have freaked out. Yeah. And then we had an audience with Patabi Joyce afterwards. They just sat us on the floor in front of him.
Yeah.
And they were like, what are your questions?
Amazing.
Oh, just
Is
you were in
it?
special
Yeah,
group.
Just
Your
us.
special group. Yeah. Oh, awesome.
Those of us who didn't know what Ashtanga was, who didn't know who we like a bunch of integral yogis who were like, excuse me, yeah, sir, lovely. Thanks for having us here. Are you all out of your minds? Like, no, nobody had any questions to ask. And he got progressively grumpier as we sat there. And somebody was like, oh, hey, I know this person. And he was like, yes, they're a very good student. And I was like, okay, this is weird. I guess we'll go now.
That's so interesting. I love because it actually really is a beautiful illustration of a lot of people don't understand, especially in recent history of Patami Joyce, all that's come to light around his adjustments and things going on in the Shala, how actually respected he was in India by like everyone.
Yeah. For sure.
And people really had a lot of admiration and respect. I remember he was introduced to me several times as like a medicine doctor, like a jungle physician.
Right.
Yeah. And the students at that time also really treated him that way, like a magic shaman doctor.
Yeah.
They had like little things that they would take back. Luke Jordan really puts it beautifully. Like the coin of the realm was an anecdote that Patabi Joyce or Sharat had told you. And so people would share the anecdotes like they were exchanging money. Who was going to come out the best of the trade?
Yeah.
And they would tell you little stories like, oh, Guruji told me to only eat ice cream this month.
Oh, it's always the ice cream story. Yeah,
Yeah,
everybody, that was still rolling around when I was in Mysore because everybody would be like, should we go get ice cream? They'd be like, it's important for the practice. And we'd all go and get ice cream because ice cream was canon.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Olaf only eating ice cream for a month.
Yeah.
Oh, and it cured him of something.
Yeah,
Probably
because
his
it's
ketamine addiction.
sattvic, right? Ice cream.
It is sattvic, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it also increases kapha, and the practice really increases vata and pitta. So Ayurvedically, it makes sense in India.
Yeah. I think it makes sense at home too, as an ice cream person.
Maybe if you're living in a hot country here, it's a little.
Oh, I don't care.
Cold on cold.
I'll eat ice cream in the freezing cold. I love ice cream.
So you didn't start practicing Ashtanga yoga then. That was like your first kind of taste into this crazy, weird culture.
So I had only done yoga at this one little studio that was basically just hatha. And so then I did the integral yoga teacher training, and that became my practice. And I did that practice for a couple of years. And also ridiculous coincidences of my life. I came home from India having learned that the main integral yoga ashram in the entire world is 45 minutes from Charlottesville.
Oh my God.
So I had traveled however many thousands of miles to connect with an institution that is almost literally in my backyard. So that was great for me though, because then I could continue to go there. And I did a number of other programs and teacher trainings in Yogaville. And through friends I made in Yogaville and just through the organization on the whole, integral yoga is incredibly unthreatened by other schools of yoga. They're very much like, do what you like, do what works for you. This is what works for us. They host teachers of other lineages all the time. They're very encouraging of exploration. So through that organization and through friends I made there, I got connected with Dharma Mitra. I don't know if you're familiar with Dharma Mitra.
Yeah.
And was back and forth practicing doing a training with Dharma in New York while helping a friend open a vinyasa studio in Virginia Beach.
Dharma Mitra, the most famously flat-headed person on the planet.
Yeah. The no-handed headstand is a scam. He doesn't hold it. He actually puts his arms out and then slaps them up to his sides and will say, take a picture. And then he'll fall down. Yeah. And he's so good-natured about it. It's just, he's wonderful. His organization at that time was very unethical, but Dharma himself was lovely and just full.
There's a lot to unpack there.
Yeah, that's maybe a conversation for another podcast. But Dharma himself was lovely, just full of humor, full of joy. So then I was helping someone open a vinyasa studio in Virginia Beach. And it was like our entry-level classes were integral yoga. And then our more athletic classes were either Jivamukti style, because he was a Jivamukti teacher, or Dharma style classes. And the Jivamukti influence, there was a lot of Jivamukti in the city at that time. And it was really at Jivamukti's heyday.
Yeah. Just to unpack for the audience, you could say Eddie Stern and Guy Donahue and
David Life and Sharon Gavin
all came out of this Jivamukti, and then every punk who was doing yoga, and you couldn't be more cool than to be a punk rocker doing Ashtanga yoga or any kind of yoga. It just flooded the city with these seeds.
Yeah. Yeah.
It came out of Ashtanga yoga.
Yeah, David Life and Sharon Gavin.
Yeah, you said Jivamukti. They came out of Ashtanga yoga and then they rebranded their own style to the Jivamukti. Yeah.
But when they came to Ashtanga yoga, they were already doing kind of some other stuff.
Yeah, I think they had a lot of the kirtan type.
They had some Shivananda in the back.
And Shivananda.
And I can't remember who, but yes, kirtan is really significant because the sound aspect of it was really important to them. But as a result of that, the community had a lot of Jivamukti. And as a result of that, there was this kind of subcurrent awareness of Ashtanga. And I had spent a year practicing Dharma Mitra yoga. And I had told myself, I'm going to invest in this practice for a full year. It's going to be my daily practice. I'm going to do it the way it's prescribed for a year. And then I'm going to see how I feel. And at the end of that year, I was like, this is not for me. I mean, it's great, but this is some foreshadowing for me. I was like, I cannot separate the issues in the leadership and the community from the practice.
Yeah.
And I can't balance. I mean, I was 24, I think. So I was also very young trying to navigate these things. So I was like, all right, moving on. Let's try Ashtanga. And yeah. Oh man, 15 years later. Oh dear. And so I had just decided I'm going to take this practice on for a year and see what happens. And I signed up for a Kino McGregor workshop 2 months into the year.
Yeah.
And I never looked back. I mean, I think it's very common for people to have that experience with Kino. The workshop was at a lovely shala in Richmond, which is a little closer to Charlottesville from Virginia Beach, but it was kind of splitting the difference. And it was transformative because Kino talked about how the structure and the linear nature of the series quieted the mind stuff around the practice. And that was something that I didn't even realize I had been struggling with. As somebody who was young, who was relatively gifted bodied, doing Dharma's practice, which is very devotion based. It was very what's the craziest shape you can make and then offer up to God? And integral yoga, where I was disproportionately young and able bodied to the rest of the population, where they were like, I don't really know what to do with you. You can already do a headstand. That's all I've got. Ashtanga was I couldn't do it at all.
Yeah.
And I was also told, and you also don't have to decide anything for yourself. You just do these things in this order. And then I promise you'll be able to do it. And after about a year, if I just do those things in that order, then now I can do it. And that was great. I loved that. That was awesome. It just was like, suddenly my life has purpose. The purpose is putting my leg behind my head.
That's interesting, right? So, like, you've got in your back pocket, you've got your mom's engineering degree that kind of creates for you a kind of worldview. And then you come to Ashtanga yoga, which is engineered to unfold in and then set up and support postures 10 postures from now.
I love that. Yes and no. I do think at this stage, I'm very well suited, and I do this a lot for my online community at saying, like, okay, traditionally we would approach it in this way, and here's why, and break down all those whys and say, but you personally want to approach it in this other way. And here are all the reasons why your desire to approach it differently is also valid. Now that you have all the information, you are an adult and you have to choose for yourself, or you have to choose to take this conversation into the room with your daily teacher and talk to them about, like, do a live cost benefit analysis of these choices and then make a choice and stick with it for long enough to determine if it was a good choice or a bad choice. And that, I think, is the engineering. That, I think, is the architecture. I can systematize it in my head in that way. It's very funny to me. My mom and I are not close. My mom is really severely mentally ill. We have recently rekindled a relationship, but during this time in my life, we were no contact. As, again, a child of the 80s, I think my dad, who I'm very close with, I think he really believed the dialogue that we could be anything we wanted to be, and life was only going to get easier for millennials, and we were going to have so many opportunities that previous generations didn't have. And so he really encouraged me along this path because I think he thought that there would be a different economic landscape than this post-capitalist hellscape that we live in now. Yeah. But that also being said, like that boils down to just an obscene amount of privilege. Both of my parents have degrees. They supported themselves. My dad retired young, and my family owns property, and like he doesn't have to worry about money. I don't have to worry about supporting my dad beyond functionally. My dad is blind, so he obviously does not work as an architect anymore. And that's a big part of my day-to-day life, or I guess my week-to-week life, is supporting him living at home on our family farm. And a lot of my ability to pursue this and to have my dad's support in doing it. And my mom's, like, a very small amount. She gave me money for grad school. And I said, I'm spending this money for grad school on going to Mysore. And she didn't love that, but she couldn't stop me. And, so much of it is because I had these privileges that aligned in the right way for me to be able to make it happen. Because I had been practicing Ashtanga for about a year when I said to my partner in the studio that I thought, maybe I should go to Mysore and do this right. And then I could bring it back to the community, and not anticipating that he was incredibly threatened by my kind of surprise dedication to the practice, and also very threatened by how quickly I progressed in the practice once I kind of got online with it. So I left the business. I left the studio and went to Mysore for the first time when I had been practicing for about a year and a half. So I was...
Was he a business partner or also a life partner?
Yeah, it was a romantic relationship. I try not to focus on that because the emotional dynamic of it ended really badly. I haven't been in touch with him in pushing 20 years. And I don't think it's really useful to be like, this is what he's like, because who knows what he's like now, right? We were children. We were so young. So here's hoping he is, like me, a very different place in our lives. And I'm not without blame for how the relationship ended up. There were a lot of things about myself that I didn't see until much later. I feel like that's true every stage of life, that you see in retrospect, choices you made that made perfect sense at the time. And you're like, oh, I was kind of being driven by a part of myself that really should not be at the wheel.
But needless to say, you kind of ended a chapter of your life in Virginia and entered an entirely new Ashtanga yoga bubble.
Yes. Wow. Yeah. So I went to Mysore for the first time, was stopped at Supta Karmasana in lead class on the first day, somehow didn't know that was going to happen.
Often a surprise for many people.
Yeah, that was jarring.
Yeah.
Tried really hard not to cry, just sat there in the middle of the room like, it's fine. It's fine.
Try being in advanced series and then being told you're going to stop in second series today. Everyone's experience is unique, but it's profoundly disappointing.
Yeah. So I was lucky in that regard that I didn't go to Mysore with any sense of, oh, this is what I do at home, and here I'm stopped at this point. That.
But this is what I do here, and I'm being stopped at this point. What are you?
So you had like a half a series taken away?
I had a whole series. If you put half of second and half of third together and take all of it away today.
What was the pose? that got taken away?
I was in Titibhasana in lead second series, and he said, no, you stop. I do third here. No, not today. No. And then I had to rebuild from there. And I had never heard of anyone experiencing this. I had to rebuild from Titibhasana back into advanced. Over the course of, I think, 3 weeks, I got it all back. But this was so humiliating.
Why?
What happened?
Do you know?
Oh, no, it was Dvipadashasana because I couldn't understand his pronunciation. Yeah. Dvipadashasana. What? Dvipadashasana. You stop. What the fuck are you saying? And then I finally
I could have been stopped at Dvipada at any practice in my entire time there.
And the main problem was I was probably practicing next to Maya or someone like that. Straight up and down.
Yeah.
And I was like this that day, like that. And it's like, he just had enough of this. It's like, no, you're not. You're going backwards? No.
Yeah. I was also stopped at Dvipada for 3 years. On my second trip, I went for the whole season. It was the last year you could go for the whole season. And it was, I think, like a week shy of 6 months. And I got to Dvipada and then was at Dvipada for 3 years. Yeah. Yeah, it was ugly.
And that's like a lot of jumping athletic movement that's in your background then.
Oh, no, I'm not an athletic person. I don't know why. But I could do Kapotasana the first time I tried. So not like an amazing Kapotasana, but I could scramble my way into it. So it's just sometimes that's the way. I mean, I ran a bit as a kid, like I played sports and stuff. But yeah, who knows? Just my karma, I guess.
So what do you think happens? Or what was the shift for you? You went to Mysore, you got authorized, you did the teacher training, you invested like a decade of your life exploring the practice, going deep. And then you moved back to Charlottesville. What happens?
What happened? It actually didn't happen in Charlottesville. It happened in Mysore. Yeah, during the summer course.
In 2016?
Yes. There were 4 independent and overlapping situations, none of which impacted me directly, but all of which ended up involving me partly because I'm a horrible busybody, but also just because of the nature of what it's like in Mysore. And the situations were, one, a teacher I had overlapped with a great deal I knew was very, very hard on students. I had many students come to me and tell me that they had quit the practice or they had left the Mysore room with this person because they were just so hard on them, like leaving the room in tears. It was just awful. So that was happening. And then there was a situation of a teacher who considered themselves senior to an employee in their business, in their shala. And the employee was basically saying, hey, when are we going to be peers? Like, when do I get to be your peer? we have the same level of authorization. Like, I run the program full time. Like, I do all this work. Are you ever going to acknowledge me as a peer? And their answer was basically, no, never. You will never be my peer. And then there was a situation of a lot of talking behind the back of somebody who'd done something wrong. And we all knew that they had done something wrong. Like, it was a messed up thing to do. And everybody was like, it was salacious. And we're in Mysore. It's yoga summer camp. Everybody's really excited about this salacious thing that happened. And all of this behind the back talk was going on. And nobody was telling the person that the talk was about. They had their pitchforks and their torches and they were ready to go to Sharat without ever involving the person in the conversation.
That sounds right.
That sounds juicy.
Yeah.
And then there also was an issue live in Mysore where decisions were being made by a very small community on behalf of the group, like social decisions for the group, and people were being left out because they weren't like communicated across the group. And it was very hurtful for some people who had their own personal stuff going on that they ended up getting left out. And in all of these situations, I was like, hey, does this need to be happening? Is this what we're here for? Is this what we're trying to do?
Yeah.
And all 4 times, the response was pretty much, shut up, Zoe. Zoe, just shut up. Like, it wasn't a problem until you showed up and started saying it was a problem. And as a girl child who did really well with schooling in the 80s, my neurodivergence went undiagnosed for a very long time. And I now know that I have a neurodivergent, dysfunctional sense of justice that drives me in my choice making, can make me a little impulsive in how I respond. So I basically just lost my mind and flipped the table and was just like, this is insane. You're a bunch of assholes.
Yeah.
And became a very, very, very clear and obvious target for, well, clearly you need to sit with it and find peace in yourself. Like, all right, you're not wrong, but that doesn't make what you did okay. And it very much saddens me that this is part of the story, but it is part of the story that I talked to Sharat about it. And he said that I needed to defer to their judgment because they were senior to me.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah. That puts a bow on the whole story there.
So I went home.
Oh, it's so choice.
I thought about these people, like the primary drivers in these different situations. And like what I knew of them personally, what I knew of them as like dynamic, complex people who made a bad choice in an isolated situation. You know, you can't generalize about any of these people to say they are like, you know, all bad or they across the board make bad choices because it's not true. Literally all of them I'm on great terms with now. And I had to look at the reality of the fact that when you are given a lot of authority and you are trusted because of your authority and not because of your behavior, then you will start to think that your behavior is infallible.
That's how we create an autocratic society.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that compounded on the fact that the authority is based on financial and genetic privilege.
Yeah.
Then as somebody who had the financial privilege, as somebody who had enough of the genetic privilege to get into third, as somebody who had the authority, I wasn't sure that I wouldn't do the same things and cause the same kind of harm without realizing it, because I genuinely think all of these people, they are lovely people. And they were so deep in the groupthink and so deep in the Ashtanga yoga looks like this. And this is what it looks like for me. So this is what it has to look like for you.
What we learn here is self-righteousness.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's one thing you learn from going to Mysore is self-righteousness.
Yeah. I was like, oh my God, like these people are so smart and they're so gifted. And in so many ways, they're incredibly kind. And they're all doing like their own very personalized version of abuse. And I wasn't willing to risk being a part of that. So I went home. I had a couple more months on my lease at my shala, and I ran out the year and I didn't renew my lease. And I didn't have many students, so there weren't many people displaced by it. Let's be honest. I was never a popular teacher. I didn't properly maintain the solemnity of the Mysore room, is the feedback I got a lot.
Oh my gosh.
So yeah,
What does that look like, I wonder?
Oh, I can tell you exactly what it looks like. Well, what it looks like is saying, so this is the traditional approach, and this is why the traditional approach is valuable. And this is the approach that you seem like you want to take right now. And I can totally see why that would be valuable, but they actually conflict with one another at this point. So you, as an autonomous adult, have to decide for yourself which approach feels appropriate. That is not maintaining the silence.
Really?
That is disrupting the flow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's interesting. I have a friend who I adore, and I go to his room and he would really reason with people, and he would take a very long time, and he would recite from the Gita, and he would recite from the Mahabharata, and then it's like, man, it's been like 20 minutes here.
Yeah.
And it's like, oof. But also you do want to offer choice to people. They are autonomous beings.
Yeah.
And then the other model is screaming from across the room, squeeze your anus. You just feel like a sense of humiliating, disgrace, and there's a middle path.
Yeah. Yeah. I had not found it then. We'll see if I find myself in a Mysore room again, if I will. At least I think if I ever do find myself in a Mysore room again, because I would love to, logistically, I'd probably have to move for that to happen, which is, not likely. But I do like to think that my reputation precedes me now, and people might have a little more of an expectation of what I would be like, or they would show up for that reason, which would be the best of both worlds to have that. Because I think a lot of my student population at that time I was other. I was not the program where they had experienced harm. And so they came to practice with me because they had lost their agency in the Mysore room, and they had lost their ownership of their practice, but they didn't want to stop practicing. And that's what I'm working on now, is working on finding out how to support people who want to come back to the practice or need to change direction with the practice because they're realizing they've lost their agency in it, and they need coaching in terms of how to regain it. And sometimes we need to be told that we can trust ourselves. And so much of the way we talk in Ashtanga is to kind of say, you can't trust yourself. You have to trust your teacher, and you have to trust the system. And I have a ton of trust in the system. I have so much trust in it. But I also know that it's really nuanced, and each individual body is going to relate to it very differently. And I'm not one to say that the system only is functional for people who relate to it in the way that I do.
Yeah. It's interesting that you still have a lot of trust in the system. What brings that trust?
Because I stopped going to Mysore, and I got married and I had my kids and did not have the experience that I had been led to expect around my body and growing children and Ashtanga yoga. And it was a good lesson in kind of the nuance in that everybody is different. And I can't expect to be you and to be able to show up in Sharat's room and do intermediate, like while I'm pregnant, that was never going to happen for me. But as a result of that, I have had multiple back-to-back opportunities to relearn the series and to let it ebb and flow with my life and let it ebb and flow with my body, and to really deep dive into the nuance of the postures and how they relate to each other, and how you can get the work of more advanced asanas in the early ones, particularly if your body doesn't want to do them. It takes the same amount of effort to do Ardha Baddha Padma Paschimottanasana as it does to do
Ekapada Shirshasana.
Sure. One, my body minds, and the other one, it does not. But yes, to do some later hip opening posture that I think is often lost in the leadership of the community, that for a body that doesn't want to do it, that very hard work comes earlier.
Yeah.
And revisiting that again and again and rebuilding and rehabbing a couple of injuries I got along the way just kept reinforcing that there actually is such incredible intelligence to the system if you look at it as a source of information rather than looking at it as something to get through, as something to just get behind you.
Well, I think that's like I picked leg behind the head for a very specific reason, because I think you can actually receive the same benefit from half bound lotus posture as you do from one leg behind your head. They're the exact same posture. They're just different extremes of the same range of motion. Hip,
really great news for me, because I'm never putting my leg behind my head again. I'm never going to do it.
Yeah, you don't have to. That's the whole point, is you actually don't have to, because it's not giving you anything that you can't get from doing a simple primary series posture.
Yeah.
And most postures in primary series are not simple. Just to
clarify
that.
I know. It's crazy. What's the deal with Marichyasana D?
I don't know.
That's crazy. Once you get a little distance from it and come back in, it's like, how is this something that we just are casually like, oh yeah, any loser can do that? Like, no.
Yeah, I might not ever do Marichyasana D again.
It's really
I'm kind of okay with letting it go.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. Depending on the proportions of your body, that posture can be extremely simple or extremely difficult.
Yes. And to what end? What good does it do? I mean, it's interesting. I do it. It's part of my practice now because I find it very interesting. I like to do it and relate it to other postures where I'm like, oh, this is the same range of motion, or I'm getting that same sensation and connectivity here that I do later. And it's just, wow, that's so interesting. And I love it. And every day I get on my mat because I'm like, you don't know what it's going to show you today. And some days it doesn't show me anything. Some days it showed me, hey, yesterday you ran 5 miles and then you had Indian food for dinner. And this is what inflammation feels like. That's what it shows you. But a lot of the time I get on my mat and I don't know what it's going to show me. And it shows me something really interesting. And that sparks that curiosity, that engineering mind where I'm like, oh, how does this connect to that? And then you pile on and it goes on to the next thing. And that's fascinating. And it's super motivating and very reassuring because I spent so much of my life on this. I'm really glad that I don't yet think that was a bad choice. But again, in the Mysore room, that sort of communication, especially when you come to it with the impulsive energy that I bring to communicating, it's not the approach that was celebrated during the time that I was teaching. So we're still working out the kinks in that.
What does this look like now for you? Like what is your platform for teaching and for sharing what your knowledge is? What does it look like?
That's a great question. I don't know I am actually just starting to feel that out because both of my kids will be in elementary school next year, which really opens up your day. And
Mhm.
I had decided over the summer that I wanted to start laying the groundwork for something to do with the practice that I could focus more energy on when both my boys are in school. So, right now, I am working on and soon going to actively promote a lecture series on agency and practice and how you can regain some independence in terms of your relationship with a practice, whether that means practicing independently at home or getting to the point with your confidence with your relationship to the practice that you can dialogue functionally and respectfully with a teacher about it. Because I think that's something that's really lacking in the community right now. And I think that's something I can offer because that's all I've been doing since I stopped teaching was rehabilitating my own relationship to the practice and my sense of am I allowed to make decisions for myself if I don't have Sharat or I don't have Kino or I don't have Tim, then who's making the choices, who's driving the
Yeah.
car. So I'm putting together a series on that I'm really looking forward to. I'm feeling really good about. I am transitioning, probably not over to Substack, but I want to do more writing on Substack because it's just longer form than Instagram. And the writing is much more kind of where I live. The drawings are really just to grab attention and to soften the blow of it coming from me, because there are people who interact very positively with my Instagram who don't particularly care for me. And
Well, you became
and-
quite well known for doing these drawings,
Mhm.
speaking out
yeah.
about the privilege and about
Mhm.
the imbalance in the practice and in the expectations and all of these
Yeah.
things.
Yeah.
Did that come from this experience, like all these experiences you had in Mysore that you sort of were looking for a vehicle to
Yeah.
bring this conversation to the surface?
I would hesitate to say in Mysore because it was more just my life in the community on the whole.
Right.
Because a lot of stuff, happens when you're subbing for people or when you're in another program or whatever, and you have to confront how your perspective conflicts with somebody else's perspective when you both technically you're both authorized, you both are lineage holders, but you're disagreeing. And like, how does that happen? Why does that happen? And how is it handled by people when that happens? So I think a lot of it started just because I missed talking about the practice. My first son had just been born, and I hadn't told anybody I was pregnant or hadn't told anybody I had a kid. And so I was in the thick of it with a kind of a difficult baby. And it was an opportunity to kind of exist outside the realm of new motherhood.
Mm.
And then there's the inevitable dopamine reinforcement of the screen, in the hearts and feeling liked. But now
Heard.
feeling heard, yeah. And now that's what really motivates me. I have what feels to me like a really close-knit community. There are a lot of people who interact with me a lot and watch stories and give me feedback. And so it has become a very personalized space for me. And at first it was feeling like I'm not alone. That felt amazing to get the encouragement and get the feedback of like, yeah, say these things. People need to say them. But now that I feel very mature and content in my relationship to my practice, I get messages every day from people saying, thank you for doing what you're doing. I felt so alone and I feel less alone now that I've seen your account and people need to be saying these things. And that for me is what keeps me going now because I don't feel alone anymore. And I want to help other people not feel alone in the practice because I think that's why we come to it in the first place. We come to it so that we don't feel alone because we want to be part of something. And there's this gatekeeping of, okay, you're a part of it, but how much of a part of it? Do you go to Mysore? Are you that big of a part of it? Are you authorized yet? Have you finished intermediate yet? Have you assisted Sharat? Have you done a teacher's course? There's this hierarchy of how much a part of it we are.
We got the pranayama from Guruji, so we're
yes, totally. And
Mm-mm.
it's so painful.
It's so painful.
It's so painful.
It is quite painful to endure the relentless sorting that happens
Yeah.
in every interaction with every individual within Mysore. When was your first trip? Oh, you
Yeah.
sweet summer child.
Yes, totally.
You came here
totally.
1 year after me. We have no idea of what it's like.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. And it's funny because it happens in reverse now. Like I never went to the SYC. And like I get messages from people who are like, you've never been here. You don't know. And like when I didn't have my former authorization in my bio, I would get messages from people being like, you're just sour grapes. You're just mad. You're not involved. I'm like, excuse me.
Excuse
You
me.
don't know this about me, but I'm kind of a big deal. You know, like
I don't have my certification in my bio either. I don't even know if to me, people don't even really know the difference between authorized, certified. Like it's such a small percentage of people that actually understand what that means, what that takes, how much
it's 200 people.
Yeah.
So it's like, in a way, it's stupid. Like it's painful to be in that structure, like to be participating in it. It's painful to also be on the outside of it and not participating in it. It's like, oh my God.
I stepped away from Instagram for a while because the bullying got really bad. And so I stepped away. And when I came back, I was like, you know what? I'm going to do it differently. I'm going to go through the list of people who follow me, and any of my friends, I'm going to follow them back because I had deliberately, my For You page was not yoga. And I had done that on purpose. And so I made just like a personal account and I was like, okay, this one's going to be yoga. I'm going to follow all my friends. And so if I don't follow any of my friends, please send me a message and I will follow you. But I realized in seeing all of the workshop ads and the retreat ads, nobody is teaching beginners anymore. And I mean, I'm sure people are. And I'm sure they say like beginners welcome. But then the afternoon workshops are all on like really nuanced stuff or stuff that is very heavy. And
I teach a lot of beginners. I get a lot of people coming to yoga for the first time because I'm not intimidating. I don't post like all these
because you put
asanas.
a lot of effort into cultivating that community, and that's not the norm. There still is
the anti-Christ Ashtanga yoga teacher these days.
You're an honorary unruly ascetic. There's a dearth of experienced teachers who are interested in catering their message to people who are either new to the practice or whose relationship to the practice is so dysfunctional because of how it's been presented to them that they need to just rebuild from the ground up. And that's a void I want to fill.
And you are feeling it already.
I would really love to get paid to do it.
Yeah. Come into my light worker mastermind. We'll work on that. We'll get you the business of your dreams.
Perfect. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. I am incredibly privileged to have married a man who is very responsible. He's in healthcare and tech, and I can't conceive of ever being employable to the level that he is employable. So that's great. You know, I'm not in any hurry to change what I'm doing, but I am trying to expand my willingness to engage with technology to start establishing a little bit more depth and a little bit more reach and see what can come of that, especially now that my kids aren't toddlers, you know, now that they're little boys and life is opening up a little bit.
I love your platform. And I think your message is so important. And speaking it and bringing it to light is really, I think it's the only way Ashtanga yoga is going to survive, to be honest.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think like I have done like a deep dive and listened to a ton of your podcasts in the last couple of weeks. And I've never really been a podcast person. And I'm like, oh, this is what everyone's talking about. This is great. There really needs to be more of this sort of discussion where people are just talking about their experience in normalizing their experience of the practice and normalizing their experience of abuse. not normalizing the abuse,
Yeah.
but normalizing the
Exactly.
acknowledgement
That's such
of
an
the
important
fact
distinction.
that it happened. Like, we've normalized the abuse. We've normalized the
For
wrong.
decades,
Yeah.
we normalized the abuse in
Yes.
our exchanges with each other.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, he was terrible to me. It was like,
Yeah.
but normalizing the experience of abuse.
Yeah. Yeah. And we need to be more proactive about having these discussions in private, but also publicly, so that when I recently had a conversation with a very dear friend and a teacher, because I got a message from somebody who practiced with him. And the message was like, oh, hey, I had this bad experience. And this teacher is my friend and someone I trust. And it's not my job to reassure that student that they didn't mean harm. It's my job to go to my friend and say, hey, like, this happened. This is their experience of it. We need to talk about it
Mhm.
because there's no other way. Like, maybe there will be some governing body someday that can come down from on high and keep us on track. I don't think that's going to happen.
But we have to hold each other accountable. I think
We
that's more
do.
powerful than anything.
Absolutely. And it has to start with a willingness to say, hey, something's going off the rails here, but also a willingness to hear that your actions caused harm and to not focus on the why of your actions or how you think your actions should have been interpreted, but to just accept, like, your actions caused harm. Like, I got a message from a good friend about a post saying, hey, like, you posted this and this hurt my feelings. I had to sit with it and I had to say, I'm sorry. It was not my intention to hurt your feelings. I'm sorry. And avoid the desire to say, ugh, it wasn't about you. Why do you have to make everything about you? I'm allowed to have my own opinions. You don't even follow me,
Yeah.
because it's like, don't tone police me.
Yeah.
I needed to be willing to say, I'm sorry to have hurt you. Just having to do that was a useful process. Even if I didn't take it down, I didn't reword it, I didn't change it because I still stand behind it. But I could also acknowledge that, like, when you are very critical of something, people are going to be hurt by it. And that's part of the give and take.
Yeah, but I always think that this is a really important thing for people to remember is like when you're getting triggered about something, it's because it lives in you. That little doubt or that little niggly thing that's
Yeah.
bothering you,
Yeah.
it's there
Yeah.
in your subconscious mind.
Yeah.
And that's why you're getting
Yeah.
triggered is because it's something that you already are not seeing for yourself.
Yeah. This feels like a really inappropriate time to say the thing I'm about to say anyway, that I have said any number of times, just because you see yourself in what I'm saying doesn't mean I'm talking about you.
Yeah.
And that was a lot of where, for me, the element of people accusing me of bullying and being really aggressive and really hard on me about my content was because they either saw themselves in the criticism I was making of the larger scene, or they saw their teacher. These are the real kind of ugly, the insidious feedback folks are the ones who felt like I was targeting their teacher. And I will admit I've done that a couple of times, but I have never criticized something that I see in an individual in a vacuum. It's always, oh, this person is a very clear example of a system-wide problem. And that's kind of the root of the commentary. And then the students of the very clear example take it very personally. And then I have to say, just because you see yourself in it doesn't mean I'm targeting you. Like, I'm not a bully because I'm just saying what I see. At least I don't think so.
No, I think that's a perfect way of saying it. If you're identifying with it or you think it's about you,
Yeah.
that's your stuff that you need to work on. That means, oh, what is it about me that I'm not liking, that I'm identifying with, that I feel like is getting called out here.
Or I've had people try to do the reverse to me and say like, well, you're like this. And I'm like, yeah, I know.
Yeah.
You're right. I am. That's exactly what I'm like. And that's not something I'm going to change about myself. It's totally fine for you to not like me. I don't have a problem with that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. 100%. I think there's a lot there, but I think it's important we bring the shadow side to the surface because that's the only way you start to see what's there.
Like that's what I do on my mat. Like when I'm practicing and when I'm trying to do something and I'm failing, I have the opportunity to look at where I am not being honest with myself. Like, where could I be putting in more effort? Where do I think I know what I'm doing? And maybe it's a blind spot, or maybe I'm just not doing it today, or maybe I'm being kind of avoidant. And then you do that enough times on your mat, and then you can start to you do it in your body, and then you do it in your mind, right? Then you do it in your heart, and you recognize, oh, you know what? I'm letting my habitual emotional patterns drive me, and they're not serving me. They're forcing me to exist in this state of cognitive dissonance that is miserable, spending all my time defending myself to myself when I could just change my behavior and just be truly vulnerable and truly authentic and accept that will result in some people not liking you and it will result in some people not agreeing with you. But if you know that you were true to yourself every step of the way, then honestly, maybe we should mind, but I don't mind. If I show who I really truly am and people don't like me, then I cannot actually control my mind and my personality to be able to override that. I'm not an actual ascetic. It's too unruly. I'm still just down here on the ground being a householder. And
I'm sure there was plenty of people that didn't like Ramana Maharshi. Come on. They're like, who's that guy in the doily, like up there meditating in the cave?
Certainly my grandparents wouldn't have approved of his behavior. It's fascinating though, because we really do have to kind of tie this up. But it's and when I think about how the practice is a mirror to us, because like I went to the practice and discovered that I was good at something, and then that thing that I was good at, floating, prevented success in so many other areas of the practice. And in life, you identify with yourself as Swedish Jewish male, and so much of that identification prevents me from seeing God in all things in me. And so that, again, we keep getting stuck up on our limiting beliefs.
It's true. It's hard to know when are we limiting potential growth by being satisfied with where we are and being too accepting of where we are, which is I'm just going to accept where I am phase of my life. Like at some point that will probably become limiting for me. And maybe I'm already realizing that in terms of my desire to expand what I'm offering and to shift gears a little bit on what I'm putting effort into my life, and realizing that a lack of stimuli, like the yogi in the cave who says they've overcome anger because they've not spoken to anyone in 30 years, like it's pretty easy to be relaxed. And that's where I was, lack of stimuli. Like I have my family and I have my family responsibilities and no other stress. And it was great. I was very happy, but I also wasn't giving back any of the benefits that I've gotten from these years of practice. And as I engaged more with my community and got back into the Instagram space, I remembered that service and giving back to that community and being a resource for people in that way is important to me. And it's not necessarily work I want to do every single day because it's work, but it also gives, a sense of purpose, and it makes me look at myself and look at my choices and ask, oh, are you actually doing the work you think you're doing? Or do you simply feel successful because you're not being challenged?
Yes, that is such a good question. Beautiful. Tell everyone where they can find you on Instagram and keep in touch with you and see what you get up to next.
Yeah, my Instagram handle is Unruly Aesthetic. UNRULYASCETIC. The aesthetic gets lost. If you end up accidentally on Unruly Aesthetic, that's my personal page. You're welcome there, but there's no yoga content there. And I just started a Substack. There's literally nothing on it, but you can probably find it through my Instagram soon. I think if you have a handle for Substack, it would be the same.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's all baby growth stages, but hopefully it will expand.
Yeah. And we'll throw all the links in our show notes too, so everyone can.
Right.
I've really enjoyed getting to meet you, and thank you for being with us today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. You guys are so lovely, and I love the dynamic between you. I love the kind of juxtaposition of personality. You guys are great together.
Before we wrap up, I just want to invite you to reach out if you are craving a deeper alignment with your work. If you want more consistency and taking steps forward in your business, or a community where you don't have to shrink or hustle or perform, where you can truly be seen and supported and held, I really want to invite you into this beautiful opportunity. It is my year-long coaching program and community called the Lightworker Mastermind. This is a beautiful online space where we meet 3 times each month. It's the place where your inner and outer worlds come together. We work on energetic healing. There's monthly spinal energetic sessions online. You receive somatic regulation, facilitation, as well as soulful strategy for your business. We come together as a community and support each other in creating businesses that not only help to increase our own abundance and meet our own needs, but actually transform the world. Creating businesses that don't drain you, or where you don't have to be on 100% of the time, 7 days a week, but a business that uplifts you and regulates your nervous system, that reflects who you truly are. And this is what we do inside the Lightworker Mastermind. It's an entire year of rewiring your relationship with money, with visibility, with leadership, and upleveling your self-worth. So it's a powerful container. If you would like to hear more about it, or you're feeling called to connect with me personally, this is the best way to do it. And I just encourage you to reach out for a clarity session. You can follow the link in the show notes, because building a business can be a part of your spiritual practice. And it is the number one path to personal development and spiritual growth. If you want more in your life than just bending your body and making shapes, if you want to create a life from a place of inherent self-worth and not self-sacrifice, and from a place of resonance instead of exhaustion, then this is going to be the space for you. Imagine having a coach to walk with you, me, walk with you step by step, and just support you in writing the next chapter with you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being a part of our Finding Harmony community for this year and all the previous years. And I love that you're just willing to question, to evolve, and uplift each other so that we can all really raise consciousness, our own and the whole entire planet. We really, really need it now. And I really honor and appreciate this work that you do. That's it. We've concluded another episode of the Finding Harmony podcast. I just want to thank you so much for doing the work that changes the world, starting with yourself. It truly does make a huge difference. Please make sure you have your automatic downloads turned on wherever you listen so you don't miss any of the upcoming episodes. I have so much more magic I can't wait to share with you. Lastly, if you're on Instagram, I love connecting and hearing from you. So come on over and say hello at Finding Harmony Podcast. And you can also come say hello to me personally at Harmony Slater Official. Thank you again for being here. I cannot wait to share more with you in our next episode.